Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Marion County Children's Services Podcast. My name is Elizabeth. I'm the Foster Care and Community Engagement Coordinator. And here with me this week, I have a very exciting guest. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Tom Stolf. I'm the President and CEO of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium and the Wilds.
Awesome. Well, I am super excited to have you on, and I'll kind of tell you a little bit about why I reached out to the zoo. I'm a zoo member. My family and we got our membership renewed this past year, and when we came out and we saw the manatees, and that was such a really cool story. And so that kind of got me interested in having you guys on because, as I just explained, I'm the foster care recruiter. And so I thought that was awesome about that situation. So do you want to talk for a minute about the manatee situation, just to kind of fill people in who may not know?
Yeah, it's a great story. You know, I've been working in the zoo field for over 30 years. And when we talk about the importance of zoos, there's so many things to talk about. Obviously, we focus on conservation, and we are a community asset, not only for tourism, but we give people an opportunity to learn about amazing animals around the world. There's so many great things why it's important to have a zoo in your local area, and a cool zoo like Columbus Zoo.
Yeah.
But the manatee program is extra special because, unfortunately, we have animals in the world, especially manatees, that either get sick or they get injured by a boat hit, and the offspring, the youngsters, need help. And we are only, there's only a handful of rehabilitation areas, and there's only 2 facilities outside of Florida that actually take these manatees that are orphaned and care for them. And after a couple years, they go right back where they were found. And I had the opportunity to participate in a release just last year. And I can tell you right now, the best thing that I've ever done in my life was to carry a manatee with help from about 15 other people, because they're very heavy. But on their paddle, on the back of the manatee, there's actually a Velcroed beeper, like a bobber, that so we can monitor for the first few months where the manatee is and make sure that it survived, and to put the manatee in the water and then slowly watch that bobber sink and go out of sight. That was a wonderful feeling. And it really is a great story, because not only are we educating our local guest coming into the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, but we're saving a manatee's life, and they're in trouble. And you know, if you ever go down to Florida, especially in the wintertime, you know, on the coastline, like in Tampa, there's a electrical plant there, and there'll be hundreds of manatees because it's warmer water.
Okay.
And they'll hang out there, and it's pretty cool to see. So we're helping them out.
Yeah, my parents live in Daytona Beach, so we go down to Blue Springs, and we
great.
ride our bikes back there. Oh my gosh, it's so cool. So I was really intrigued by that manatee story. So maybe this is a terminology difference, but if not, can you maybe explain the difference between what I've read is that you guys call it, she's a surrogate mother. And of course, we call it fostering. So what's kind of the difference, or is it just a terminology thing?
Yeah, I think it's really terminology. You know, when we sit back and you want to look at the definition of fostering versus surrogacy, you know, I looked on the internet, and, you know, they're very similar. You know, a foster, they say, is an unrelated care of a parent, and surrogacy is replacing that parent. And, you know, the bottom line is this: I don't care what you call it. There are animals, including humans, that need our help. And we have a great story with many different fostering or surrogacies. In the zoo world, sometimes they will say a foster example would be if there's an egg and you put that egg in a nest, the parents don't realize that it's not their egg, and they'll raise that young even though it's a different species, and that could be fostering. But I could also see someone saying that that's a surrogacy program as well. So we have surrogacy in many different examples. One would be, you know, our Mexican wolves, as well as our gorilla program. You saw, and we've already talked about the manatee program. You know, in the end, it's fantastic that we have animals that are nurturing young, and that happens in the wild. It happens in zoo care, animal care, and it's very important because, you know, there are unfortunately many animals that we care for that are highly endangered. And that doesn't mean that they're gone. It just means that they're in trouble. And with science, we can study and make sure that we can, well, maintain the population that they have. I remember growing up and would watch on National Geographic. There were tons of animals from all over. And now lions are endangered, cheetahs are endangered, and there's not that many giraffes in the wild anymore. And it's,
Wow.
you know, I remember growing up and rhinos were in trouble. Well, they're still in trouble. But now it's expanding to other species that I never thought in my lifetime I would say they're endangered, but they are.
Wow. Yeah, so your assistant, I think, had sent me over some of those articles that you were just talking about. And so I really appreciated that because I did not know about all of those examples. And of course, as I'm reading, I'm like, that all makes sense. I just didn't think about it. So you guys have a history of overseeing these relationships. And of course, we've already talked a lot about Stubby and what she does for manatee calves. Can you share how was she chosen to be a surrogate mom? We have, of course, applications and home studies, and I'm sure you cannot do that at the Columbus Zoo, or you've already done your home study and it's passed. And so how is she able to teach calves what they need to learn to be out in the wild?
Yeah, so it really is a choice. If Stubby didn't want to be around the younger manatees, the calves, then that was her choice. But she, as we introduced the first youngsters to her, it was no question about it. There was a bond, and they're, you know, when they're first coming in, they don't know their surroundings. Some of them are still on bottles. We have to bottle feed these manatee calves because they're mammals, so they drink milk just like we would. And so as they're starting to learn to eat the romaine lettuce that we're feeding them, Stubby would help them, and they would go down, or they'd go to the top of the water wherever the romaine is, and they would follow her. And it really is helpful for us. She is such an asset to the manatee program. But it really clearly was her choice. There's no training on this, especially for manatees. Now, maybe with the gorilla program, we are really known for our surrogacy with gorillas. We've been doing it for many, many years with different mothers, and we've had great success. Now, for a gorilla, you know, again, it's not training by humans, but we can see as our keepers, they know who's a nurturing mom, and especially if they've had young before, we know if they're good mothers, and you know, it's that bond with that baby. And it's absolutely amazing. And they have always done a really good job. I don't know if there's a surrogacy program around the world that is more successful than what we have. And that's one thing I want to make sure people realize. Zoos around the world work together. We all have that same goal, and that is animal welfare is our top priority. And if we can help a zoo, we just had a youngster come from the Milwaukee County Zoo in Wisconsin that needed our help. And that youngster will stay with us until it's able to be on its own, and it may go back or it may go to a different zoo. We all work together.
Yeah, I've certainly been educated on that through Secrets of the Zoo.
Yeah.
I'm certainly a fan. We all of our kids, even down to our almost 2-year-old, like to gather around and we watch that. And so I think that's super cool. And like you said, I don't think, at least before then, I didn't know anything about that. So I don't think that's something that the general public knows. And that's amazing, really, because, you know, we're all about collaborating with other organizations. So it only makes sense that it's happening in the zoo world also.
Yeah. And, you know, you can really relate a lot of things that happen in our lives. And it's the same in the animal kingdom. You know, if you've ever had an opportunity to watch a Discovery show or a show about lions, they live in a pride, they babysit, You know, they all work together. They'll hunt together. They eat together. They give baths together, and you know, and then they have aunts and uncles, and they all work together. And you can relate it to sometimes our families, right?
Yeah, support
But
systems and everything.
so Secrets of the Zoo that you mentioned, we're very proud of that show because we want to make sure people realize the passion that we have. You know, the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium has been around since 1927, and it's always had great successes. But I don't know if we always told our story. And to have that opportunity to work with Nat Geo Wild, which is owned by Disney, to come into the behind the scenes and interview some of our staff members. You know, we have 2,500 employees.
Wow.
300 of those are full time. Wow. And you're only getting a glimpse of some of the passion and the stars of our zoo. I want to assure you that we have many more. So the show could go on for probably 40 years and you'll probably never see everybody that makes a difference here at the zoo.
I love that. That's awesome. So how does the fostering in the zoo, what you guys are doing, help increase chances of survival for some of these animals? You talked about some of them being endangered. And so how does this help?
Yeah, so a real good example would be our Mexican wolves.
Okay.
So we actually have a program that work with this animal, the species that's in trouble. And they literally will have wolf pups that are born in a zoo or in human care, like we say. And if they're equal age of a mother that has had pups in the wild, we can literally take our pups from the zoo and give them to the mother of the wild, and she will take them in and raise them. So we're talking about a species that's vulnerable or endangered. They're in trouble. And the only way that you're able to really increase that population is to be able to help in every way you can. What a perfect example of transferring an animal from human care out into the wild. That's a great story. Another thing that has happened just recently, for the first time ever, we had 2 cheetah cubs born in vitro. It's never been done in a large cat ever. Even though cheetahs are considered small cats, they're still a large cat. But this is fantastic because think about what we can do in the wild. We can actually collect the gametes from the wild animals. They can give birth in a zoo or in human care, and then they can be re-released. And we can do that the opposite way. We could collect the gametes from zoo animals and then put them in wild animals as well if they, you know, can't get next to each other. That's the problem that we're having with endangered animals. It's about coexistence. The number one reason why animals are endangered is human wildlife conflict. And a lot of their natural areas are being separated. So what a cheetah could do in the wild, you know, 30 years ago is they could run for a long distance. Now their parks are getting smaller, and so they might not be able to get to that new female or to that new male. With in vitro, that could possibly help. So these are just examples of ways that we focus on animal welfare and animal conservation, making sure that the animals that are in our care get the top quality, but they're ambassadors. These animals that we have, we're learning from, and we're helping the animals in the wild.
That's awesome. So part of this you've really already touched on, but I guess specifically talking about fostering, do you see any of those situations happen in the wild naturally, not from like how you're helping facilitate that? Is that a natural thing also?
It is, yes. Yeah, you can see that in gorilla troops in the Congo, in Rwanda, the mountain gorillas. They do work together, and it has been noted several times where there'd be an orphan youngster and another female would care for them. Matter of fact, it's been documented that even silverback males have adopted and fostered youngsters, and they care for them. I've had the opportunity to travel to the mountains of in Rwanda and Uganda. I've witnessed it firsthand, the bond that these animals have. And it's easy to relate them to the care that humans give their youngsters, right? And it's absolutely amazing to see these species and see how they interact. And it's very similar to the way we act.
That's awesome. Well, those are all the questions I have for you. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add, or you think the general public could really benefit from knowing? I'm sure there's a plethora of stuff, but.
Yeah, so I think the best thing to do is to check out our websites, either thewilds.org or columbuszoo.org, because there are so many things that we're offering. We have some free days that are coming up where people can come and enjoy the zoo. There are activities that are behind the scenes. If you're looking for a gift for somebody, they're affordable and they're fun. And you might even meet one of the stars from Secrets of the Zoo, either animal or person. And you know, it's a great, I'm glad that we're talking about this, because fostering and surrogacy are extremely important. And it's happening all over the world, globally, with our animal friends and our human friends.
Awesome. Yeah, so I normally have an unprompted question for you on my podcast for everybody. So you actually already touched on this a little bit. So I'll just go ahead and ask, if I were to do the experience where I can give the elephant a bath, do you get to pet the elephant?
Yes, you're going to. You're gonna give them a bath, and you'll be able to touch their skin, and you'll feel what a pachyderm is, which is a thick-skinned mammal. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
all right. Well, there's our unscripted question, and hopefully my husband's watching, so he knows. You know, there's some holidays coming up. Valentine's Day sounds like a great present. So
no question. All right, take care.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. And as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send me an email. If you have any ideas for future episodes, please get in touch with me. And thank you so much for your time. I'll get you guys linked on our Facebook also. Have a great week.
We'll see you at the zoo. Bye-bye.